Welcome to the 30th MERLIN webinar. Today's speaker is Aniela Stachnik from the Iberian Center for River Restoration, CIREF.
She is deeply involved in the SpongeBoost project, another European Union funded project that is basically on the sponge function of landscapes. So an area where we at MERLIN also are working on quite a lot. And they have case studies in Estonia, in Belgium, in Germany, and in Spain. Aniela is an environmental engineer, and she has worked on quite a lot of river restoration projects in Spain mainly. And she is now also a project officer at the Iberian Center of River Restoration, where she is responsible also for the technical aspects of the case study side, so basically on coordination aspects within the SpongeBoost project. As usual, I would like to remind you in the rules for today's meeting, so please make sure that your microphone is muted. If you have questions, please post them in the chat, and I will then try to prioritize, and maybe also summarize questions if several of you have more or less the same question. We have half an hour of presentation, and afterwards we will have half an hour for questions and answers. Aniela, thank you very much for joining us today, and we are looking very much forward to your talk.
Thank you, Daniel, for that really great presentation. And now I'm going to be sharing my screen so that you can see the presentation. So, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Daniel already said, my name is Aniela Stachnik, and I am a member of the Iberian Center for River Restoration. And today I want to talk to you about one of the latest projects that we've been enrolled, which is SpongeBoost. And how do we plan to translate all the knowledge available regarding this topic into solutions in the context where water regimes are changing and extreme events are becoming more frequent. But first, I want to start by explaining why do we use the term sponge when talking about water-resilient future. And we have to go back to the year 2000 when the Chinese architect named Kong Jiangyu started to use this term when talking about urban environments and how we needed to modify our approach to urban planning. He opposed to the traditional model dominated by gray spaces, paved surface, and the lack of consideration of human well-being in the planification area. So since then, it has become a widely used term for sustainable water management strategies that prioritize human well-being and also help to mitigate the effects of climate change. So from that moment, we started to design the cities that absorb, store, and reuse rainwater efficiently, just like a sponge, and that help us reduce flood risk and create healthier environment. So after numerous successful stories, this shift in perspective led us towards a more natural environment that already perform these functions. And after this idea, the term sponge territories and sponge capacity were born in what refers to this. I have brought these images of very different places to highlight what they have in common. Here we can see rivers, lakes, peatlands, marshes, and even mangroves. And all of these ecosystems may seem very different at first glance. But however, the reality is that they are all dominated by water, which acts like a regulator and supports its natural functions. And all these ecosystems are great examples of wetlands, which can also be grouped under the category of sponge territories. Now that you know which are the environments that we consider sponge territories, you might be wondering what's the role in landscape, right? So to give you an idea, wetlands have the highest capacity to deliver ecosystem services per unit of area. And for example, they are considered our primary source for drinking water and play a major role in treating or detoxifying various waste products. In addition, wetlands are also crucial for buffering the impacts of the climate change, such as flooding. And one case, for example, peatlands can also help to regulate the climate by sequestering or releasing a significant amount of carbon, which is stored in the biosphere. And even though they only covered up to 4% of the world's land area, they are believed to store up to 500 gigatons of carbon. So, knowing all these facts, we could consider them as strategic territories, right? But the reality is quite different. Numerous studies are dedicated to estimate the loss of wetlands across Europe and even the world, and these are some of the most common facts. Wetlands in Europe have been modified, drained, and destroyed during the past millennium, and less than 20% of the original pristine wetland area still remains. And which is the worst, is that the greatest loss has taken place in the past 75 years. So all these Western Europe wetlands are often reduced in size compared to the original area, but still they are really valuable in terms of biodiversity and ecosystem services. And I wanted to bring up these two pictures to show the evolution of the Ebro River floodplains here in Spain, which highlight the loss of active floodplain area. And this has become a major threat during heavy rainfall events, which are followed by a rise of river levels, and where the lack of space increase the risk of severe flooding for people and farmland. So, the main causes of degradation of these ecosystems are usually associated with anthropic impacts, usually related to agriculture and infrastructure development. For example, activities such as drainage, pit mining, land use changes, the channel modification of the rivers, and even occupied floodplains, among others. And the reality is that all these activities had led to a fast discharge of water and little infiltration into deeper layers. So as a result, the water, which is the main driver to these healthy wetlands, is being taken away through decades. And this situation becomes even worse and more complex in this context of climate change as extreme events are becoming more frequent. Wetlands whose hydrology has been severely altered are now more vulnerable to floods and droughts triggered by climate change. And over time, they continue to degrade, lose their functionality and their natural capacity for storing water. And at the end, it is us as society who are the most affected and becoming increasingly exposed to greater risk due to these vulnerable ecosystems. So you might be thinking, what can we do about it, right? So, well, the most intuitive way to do something about this is to restore the sponge capacity of our landscapes, focusing especially on restoring wetland areas as well as promoting healthy soils which can absorb large amounts of water. For example, we can decelerate water runoff by recovering meanders, closing ditches, or maybe reclaiming river space by removing bank reinforcements. And here I also want to highlight the importance of basing all these restoration strategies on nature-based solutions, as it is the only way to ensure the success of our efforts. So now you might be wondering if there is any evidence that restoring sponge capacity has led to any improving of environmental conditions, and the answer to that is yes. For more than a decade, our SpongeBoost partners have been identifying and researching the functioning of the areas with high natural sponge potential around Europe. And a good example of this is the study carried out in the upstream valleys of the German Middle Mountains in the Rhine Basin area. The findings of this study highlight the effectiveness of natural water measures, natural water retention measures in attenuating the peak flows and also increasing the base flows and reducing the nutrient loss to the stream. So for that specific study, they relied on the SWOT plus model to compare a reference scenario, as it is the current situation, to a wetland scenario, where they introduce small natural sponges only covering about 4% of the surface. And with that, they demonstrate to provide a disproportionately large regulatory effect where they could store the water after heavy rainfall events and then slowly releasing it into the streams, like really in a steady flows. So yes, there is this evidence. Well, right now in Europe, there is a great interest in these sponge territories. And as a result, the last few years, the European Commission have launched several Horizon programs to fund some research projects that promote the study and application of nature-based solutions to improve sponge capacity across Europe, right? So currently there are 3 European scale projects focused on study this topic. We have the Sponge Scapes, which started back in October 2023, which is composed by a consortium of 10 partners, and they're studying 14 different cases across Europe. We can also have SpongeBoost, which started in January 2024, and the latest, which is SpongeWorks, which started in September 2024, which has a relatively greater scope because they're studying 3 large-scale demonstration sites and other 8 associated regions. But now I want today to focus on SpongeBoost, which actual name is upscaling the natural sponge functions of freshwater ecosystem to deliver multi-benefit Green Deal solutions. So our consortium is composed by 10 partners from 7 European countries with interdisciplinary backgrounds in research, policy, and management. And it also includes university, research centers, consultancy experts, and NGOs. So here in this map, you can see where we are all located. So our goal in SpongeBoost is to collect, test, and spread innovative solutions to enhance the sponge function of our landscapes, with the aim of supporting climate change adaptation, disaster risk reduction, and biodiversity. So to achieve this, we have broken the project into different specific actions, such as improving knowledge base by compiling challenges, failures, and successful experiences across Europe and other countries, creating also a comprehensive database of all projects available here. We are also going to be testing the nature-based solution through various ongoing case studies here in Europe, with the final goal of integrating all this information and the results that we're going to be getting into a roadmap of innovative solutions in collaboration with the stakeholders at different European, national, and regional scales. So we expect that our contribution could influence the national nature restoration plans, downscaling the European policies, such as the Nature Restoration Law and the Soil Strategy for 2030, while also promoting the adoption of natural-based solutions across Europe. So from now on, I will focus on introducing you the case studies of our project, which are we are actually studying 7 different sites located across 4 European countries, including floodplains and peatlands. So we have 1 case located in Portugal, 2 in Spain, another 2 in Germany, and finally another 2 in Estonia. As you may have noticed, our case studies cover a really wide region, and they are really far apart from each other. So that allows us to study up to 5 different biogeographical regions with diverse climatic, economic, and social conditions. And this will help us to better understand environmental impacts in various socioeconomic contexts. I want to first start off by our Portuguese case study, which is located in the island of San Miguel in Azores Island, which is the Macaronesian biogeographical area. And in this island, there is a plateau located in the eastern area of the island, which is known as the Priolos Land. The Priolos Land is a little bird you can find in this picture, and our partners from SPEA, which is the Sociedade Portuguesa para o Estudo das Aves, are trying to recover its habitat since 2003. The anthropic impact present in this area has altered the hydrology of the peatlands, causing habitat loss and no capacity for water retention, which actually has caused severe floods in the cities located downstream this area. Thanks to many life projects, they've been able to restore and monitor the changes in soil and biodiversity. And now they are contributing to SpongeBoost with all the knowledge they've been gathering through the years. Now moving on to the Snæfell hyphens. Our partners from the University of Aachen are working to improve the water retention capacity in the region of Snæfell, which is located in Western Eifel in Germany, but is near the border of Belgium. The particularity of this area lays on its geology, because the underlying clay slate in this region contribute to waterlogged conditions. This high water availability supports the development of various wetland habitats, often referred to locally as fene. This habitat creates a mosaic of smaller biotope complexes, including bogs and swamp forest, more heathens, and even transitional mires. But, however, the large areas in this particular region are currently covered with spruce trees, which has altered the natural spawn function of the area. And our partners, in collaboration with the regional authorities and local stakeholders, plan to gradually convert these plantations into mixed deciduous forest with trees that are better suited for the local environment. So also thanks to the SpongeBoost framework, they will be able to monitor the recovery of this function. And the other case study that is located in Germany, it's the Weisse Elster catchment with our partners from the Hensholt Center for Environmental Research. They have extensive experience in restoration projects, especially in this catchment. They've been involved in numerous projects that aim improving the environmental conditions of the river. And the latest one they've been enrolled is the Lebendige Lupe project, which focuses on preserving biodiversity and ecosystem functions of the floodplains in Leipzig, one of the most largest coherent floodplain forests in the Middle Europe. So the project began back in 2012 and aimed to improve a river that had been heavily modified, which was strained, deepened, and canalized for better transportation purposes. Moving towards our Estonian cases, our partners from the University of Tartu are working with large-scale sites, studying the Parnau catchment as well as the Alampidia and Emajogi catchment. This area covered a wide range of the country and have been subject to past and future restoration projects. So the main human impacts in this region includes peat production and extensive drainage for farming, agriculture, and especially here for forestry. The good news is that the central focus of this project is to close drainage ditches, to re-wet the sites, and restore the natural water regime. The primary aim of the restoration efforts is to ensure the long-term survival or reintroduce the native species to these landscapes while maintaining the integrity of the area. So that's why they've chosen these two sites for the SpongeBoost project. And finally, we come to the Spanish case studies. We as CIREF proposed Sierra do Sistral peatlands and the Ebro River floodplains for our SpongeBoost project. These two areas are quite different. One is located in the Atlantic region, while the other lies in the more Mediterranean region. And to begin, just the first slide, both of them have different hydrological regimes, since one is Atlantic and the other is Mediterranean. And I now would like to go into more detail of our Spanish case study so that you can better understand the diversity and complexity that we encounter while studying them. So, maybe when speaking about Spain, you might find it quite impossible to picture peatlands as a possible ecosystem to be found here, right? But the reality is that the northern Spain has the climatic and topographic conditions to facilitate the occurrence of peatland here, especially in Galicia, which is a region located northwest Spain. It has a really strongly marked Atlantic conditions. So studies suggest that the total occupied surface by mountainous peatlands might sum up to 10,000 hectares. And even the 80% of these peatlands is located in the Serra do Sistral and other surrounding ranges here. And also the importance of this area relies on its regulation capacity, as it is the headwaters of some of the main rivers in this region. Well, the Serra do Sistral consists of the most southwestern continental peatlands in Europe, and it's a unique landscape protected by the Natura 2000 network. As it hosts a really distinctive habitat such as blanket bogs. Our study of the area here focuses on characterizing the hydrological behavior of three peatlands in different stages of conservation, with particular emphasis on the characterization of water inputs of the system. Because here we have a really particular condition that, well, the main source of water in the system is fog, which actually contributes up to 16,000 millimeters accumulated each year. And hopefully, after all the studies and monitoring we're going to be doing here in these three peatlands, through this SpongeBoost project, we aim to develop a more sustainable management strategy in collaboration with the local stakeholders of the region. And now let's move towards our Mediterranean region to talk about the Ebro River floodplains. The Ebro River is well known for its historical flooding events. Here you can see the evidence dating back to 1647, which shows the damages caused by the river in the city of Zaragoza. Several studies have aimed to reconstruct the river levels of past floods. And in this graph shown here, you can see that some of the levels they were able to quantify. The Ebro River has a Mediterranean flow regime, which actually translates into having base flows around 300 cubic meters per second, but in flooding events, it can reach up to 3,000 cubic meters per second. So yeah, it's really changing regime, and within a few days, it can reach to that great magnitude of the flow. And I wanted to bring this, well, I wanted to highlight some of the popular proverbs in the area. which always call for caution in the use of the floodplains. Because yes, the Ebro River floods are natural and a recurring phenomenon in the area. One of the main issues the Ebro River, that the Ebro River has is that much of its natural floodplain area has been converted into agriculture and agricultural land and infrastructure. And since the 1960s, with the increase of use of heavy machinery, the river has been strained and extensive bank reinforcement has been made through the river. And in this picture, you can see the evolution of the Ebro River floodplains, especially in the area which is called Sotos del Faro, which is our case study for SpongeBoost. And over time, you can see that the river has gradually lost much of its natural space, which has worsened the impacts of the flooding episodes. But as I mentioned, we have chose the Sotos del Faro as our study site for SpongeBoost because it was the focus of a recent live project called Awater-resilient. This project aimed to recover the river's natural spaces by restoring the river banks. So to achieve this, levees and protectional dams were removed from the banks. Also, relief channels were constructed, and the technique called courage was applied to focusing on recovering the river lost branches. And here are some pictures of the actions that had been implemented in the area, where you can see those recovered branches that improve the capacity for absorbing the flooding in these meanders. So through SpongeBoost, we hope to quantify the effects of these actions on flood risk reduction and groundwater recharge, which are two main of the keys information for the region to adapt to climate change. So these were all of our case studies, and I hope that you now have a clear picture of each of them. And I finally want to go quickly through where do we stand now as the project SpongeBoost. And we are currently on our month 15 of the project. So most of the literature work has been already done, and we are working on developing this database with information of all European projects that have been going on regarding this we are also into monitoring our sites to test the innovative solutions. We are already deploying all the devices on field and trying to get as much results as we can through the time of the project. And we are now starting to get in contact with the different stakeholders because we are really willing to build strong relationships and work together towards this collaborative roadmap. And finally, we are also networking and disseminating our work. We are active on social media, and our web page is already functioning. So you can go ahead and check whatever information you may need to look for. And if you also, we are working on some special social media campaigns, so you can always go and check them out in our profiles on our different profiles at the station. So thank you, that was all for me. And I hope that you get all information about, you get a clear image of the current status of the SpongeBoost, sponge territories across Europe right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aniela, for this very interesting talk. And you have really a good selection of case studies, very variable, but also some case studies of which I have never heard about. So this northern Spanish case study, for example, where the water mainly comes from foxes, sounds really fascinating. Yeah, so we proceed now to the question and answer session, and the first question is from Jannis Hanf, and he asks, do you have any documents showing the overview of these case studies? And do you have any studies showing the impact of nature-based solutions? And are there any cost benefit studies? And do you have experience with NBS in Africa as well? So basically, these are 4 questions. Maybe we can start with the overview of your case studies and the nature-based solutions that have been implemented there.
Well, so right now we are hoping to get this document because it's actually one of our deliverables related to the project. We have gathered all the information, but more in an internal way where we can check and decide how do we plan, for example, the modeling aspects, or where do we have some common places here, or some common points where we can develop. So we plan to release this document of the overview of our case studies, hopefully within the next few months, because we're really working on it. We have already all the information, but we still have to gather and compile it in a formal document. So once it's already done, we will upload it to our webpage, so you can go and check it whenever it's ready. And do we have any studies showing our impact on nature-based solution? Not quite yet, because we are starting to monitor. Well, some of our partners have already been monitoring through years, but they didn't get the chance to link that information to the impacts of a nature-based solution. But it is one of our goals of our project. And related to the cost benefits, yeah, we're also trying to, with this, the work package 3, which is all our case studies, we have, let's say, 3 main pillars here. We have the environmental, the economic, and the social aspects. So we plan to do it, interconnect them by doing some cost benefits studies on the ecosystem services, especially by assessing the ecosystem services that we are, well, I don't know how to say, but we are getting out of these really well-preserved ecosystems. And for Africa, we still do not have any experience on that. That's a really good point. I would have to well, we're now focusing on Europe and how implementing these nature-based solutions in Europe. But I think it's a really good approach for future research and other stuff going across, out of Europe and having a greater scope, maybe. But thank you for those questions.
But the next questions comes from a listener called Gumi, who asks, what can we do to increase the retention of a fairly natural hillside environment if it is located just upstream from a city? So imagine that you have a city and you would like to improve flood protection upstream. What can these SPONC functions of the environment contribute?
I think there's not a general or a general answer to that, because you really need to go into the context of the area and what can be done there, because some of the sponge measures, well, the sponge measures usually are located or really in a small scale, but the effect of accumulative different sponge measures is you can well, the response of those little sponge measures is noticeable in the scale, in a scale actually. So it might depend on the slope or the number of streams, if there is the vegetation cover, and there's too many aspects to take into account before saying the precise answer to that. So also always the nature-based solutions are the greatest measures for that, because they mimic the natural process. But yeah, I would not go ahead and say just just one answer to that, because it really depends on what you have around. So, yep.
So I also have a question, which is more on this generic part of your project. So besides of the case studies, you will build a database, you said, of all European projects that are dealing with the SPONC function. Can you detail this a bit? So what is included and how do you search for these projects? And also, what will be the outcome? So will it be some sort of searchable database afterwards that everyone can access?
Yeah, so this specific task is our partner, which is Stromin, is carrying it out. They have compiled all the information available from projects such as yours, actually, Merlin, or as I recall, this Waterlands and some other major projects that have information available on the internet right now. So they have compiled this. Well, I don't know if you can see it. I can go back to it. In this small square, you can find this. It's like a navigation guide. Somehow you can you have all this map of Europe and the different sites that have information registered through projects like yours, Merlin, or well, all projects that has something to do with the sponge function. And you can go and click in the different dots, and you have all the information available, and that will redirect you to the well, mother web page of the projects. So for now, we're doing all this gathering from it's just an internal web page, but we hope to make it public to the everyone, so that we can check this. We also hope to integrate some of our SpongeScapes and SpongeWorks sites, and we're going to be developing a questionnaire for all those. We will send it out to all those projects that doesn't have, like, write it down the sponge capacity, but the action that they have been implemented are related to it. So we hopefully gather all information and upload it to this page, so that it's available for everyone, and it's like a visor. I don't know, you can just go ahead and well, go around the map and check which are the main projects around whichever area you'd like. So yeah.
And Priska Hamers added on this question that this project is also part of the mission on adaptation to climate change, which is also part of the European adaptation strategy. So it will also be all available through the website of the adaptation strategy as well. But maybe an additional question, Aniela, concerning what you search for. Are you also covering something like the Life Plus project, where there is an awful lot of information about well, especially peatland revetting, but also about floodplain restoration? So there are probably hundreds of projects also collecting those.
Well, that's it depends on which are our concerns. What do we finally choose to be our scope? Because I know that through years there's been a lot of Life project and Life Plus project that can be subject to this database. But I guess we're only going to be adding those that have information available and regarding the topics that we really need for this sponge kind of database. So it's a decision we have to make, which are the ones that are getting into it and which are not. But hopefully it will depend on the data available of those projects. So I'm not sure. Those are our partners from Stromin will be the ones that also decide this, and we will have to figure out, because we're only on the month 15, so we still have work to do until December 2028. So all the suggestion and information is really welcome in this phase of our project.
Well, thank you. So to all listeners, to the entire audience, I would welcome if you add a few more questions to the chat if you have some. Otherwise, you are also welcome, of course, to raise your hands and you can directly ask your question to Aniela. As long as we wait for these questions, an additional question from my side. As far as I understood, you are not implementing directly restoration measures yourself. So you are mainly basically investigating the way already performed restoration measures will act on the SPONG function. But do you have some sort of, let's say, a kind of common sort of protocol of which parameters you record across your range of case studies, which are very different, of course, but that's also a problem we were well affected by in MERLIN, where we also had from peatland restoration to small stream restoration, all types of different case studies, and we struggled quite a lot to find a kind of common investigation program. How did you solve this problem?
Well, we are still trying to solve it because, as you said, we have a wide range of different case studies. Even the scale is different, and we have peatlands and floodplains, Mediterranean regimes, and Atlantic or continental, and that's like quite difficult to define a specific protocol. But we're more on a process of we're going to start monitoring. Well, we already started monitoring, and we're going to be gathering all the data and see which are the common aspects that we have. And by now, we all of us have encountered that the hydrological behavior of the different sites, we're basically measuring the same way. We're measuring the inputs of the system. We're also measuring the moisture and water levels of the different sites. And we're also taking into account how it gets out of the system by some streams or within peatlands or even the former floodplain. So here it's one thing that we have in common, that we are all of us are monitoring the same hydrological parameters, but they will react in a different way. So for now, that's what we have.
So the case studies you have attended, they are, as you said, quite diverse, but I think a common denominator is in fact that they are relatively large scale. So, but still there is a gradient. So the most massive case studies were apparently those in Estonia, where they are doing huge wetland restoration. Could you add a bit more information on these specific case studies? How was it possible to restore such large areas in a country?
Well, specifically in Estonia, well, most of our projects or case studies, we're not involved in the restoring side of these sponge capacities. Actually, we are in touch with the stakeholders that they do implement these actions. So, for example, in Estonia, most of the projects were funded by the LIFE program. The Happy Feast and some other life project that have been happening there by closing ditches and stuff. And also the other project, well, the other side is the Parnau catchment, which it has relatively large natural protected areas, which have their own management on conservation projects there. So they are working on restoring that protected areas. But again, it's not us, it's the different stakeholders that we are related to or we are involving, such as the government agency of environment, or for example, the University of Aachen is also working in the Schneifel, which is a current ongoing restoration program project that the local authority is going to work with the with some of the industry there to cut down the trees and to facilitate the recovery of natural areas. But we are working on the progress for that. We're making it happen, but it's not on us that we finally develop that action into field.
Yeah, thank you for this answer. So the audience is surprisingly quiet today, so there are not so many questions in the chat. Anything you would like to ask to Aniela? So any specific question, for example, on a case study? Otherwise, I continue. I have many questions, but it's not the purpose of this webinar that it's only my questions that are being asked. So the case studies you are probably most acquainted to are the two Spanish ones, where I think that you are probably also actively working on those. Could you tell a bit more about these, fog-related wetlands? So this seems to be quite unusual. So what is the indication that these wetlands are mainly fed by fog and not by, let's say, regular precipitation?
Well, we in this region, it's really popular that it's known for its fogs. Like it's a recurrent phenomenon in the area. People know it and well, they know the existence and the frequency of this phenomenon, but it was never measured or quantified by any station or stuff until 2011, because I am a PhD researcher for the University of Santiago de Compostela, which is here in Galicia. And one of the researchers, and it's my tutor of this PhD, had they set a specific station for fog quantification, because the regular or the official weather stations here in Spain does not have any instrument that can measure this parameter. So it is a phenomenon that is well known, but no one have ever quantified. So back to 2011, this one researcher set this device, which was able to quantify all the water coming from, the precipitation coming from the fog. And one thing that is really not common, or that is really significant, is the fog here is the most occurrence is during summer, which is quite unusual for many other regions. And it is mainly because this Serra do Sistral, it's located in the north, really far north from Spain, really close to the coast. So the wind that is full of humidity strikes into the coast, and it has to rise like really fast, really fast way, actually, and it condensates in this altitude through about 600 to 800 meters above sea, and that's the main area where these peatlands can be found. So it's a sum between the orographic conditions and the location of this peatland that is really close to the coast. So when in summer most of the water is the water is heating from the ocean, it moves to the coast, and then it has to rise and precipitate. But it precipitates in the fog form, not in rain. So we've been checking, double checking the precipitation coming from fog and precipitation coming from rain. And literally rain is like not even, it is not significant at all, because we're talking about an average of 89 millimeters per month. And when we're talking about fog, it's like 1,200 millimeters per month. So yeah, this is like a really unique landscape that is not really really frequent even in Spain. It's just located to that specific area just because of the orientation and the location that it has on the peninsula. So that's really a special place. You have to visit if you can.
1,200 millimeter per month is really well an order of magnitude. And concerning, if you compare these types of wetlands now, let's say with regular peatlands, the measures that are appropriate to restore them, are they basically the same, or are there any specificities that you need to consider there?
Yeah, we're not really certain on that because these peatlands are really, let's say, new to us, and the management is not always been the greatest because they are suffering a lot of anthropic impacts from the cow farm grazing, and they are changing the chemical conditions of the soil, so the peatlands are damaged, and also some infrastructure leading to fragmentation of the habitat. But we have like really certain information. We have a really big gap of research that we hope to cover through the years of the SpongeBoost, because the people from there didn't even know those were peatlands, because they just were located in the reach of the mountains, and most of them could not reach to those points. So those were like unknown places for the people around there, and even for the authorities of the area. So what we hope to get out of this SpongeBoost is to better know the hydrological regime of these peatlands, and to broaden all knowledge possible for the area, to promote a more sustainable strategies, because we are not sure how the difference of how might, if the measurements implemented in other peatlands may work as well in these ones, because the source of water is constant through the year. So from the hydrological aspects, there have no limitations, but it comes to more the use of the land, where it is more, we think it might be more of a making or raising awareness in the local communities, so that we can promote some better management of these peatlands. But yeah, we still have a lot of work to do on this side. So yeah.
Really a fascinating case. I've never heard of this, so I would love to read a bit more about it.
Hopefully. There's a lot of literature, but it is in Spanish. But still, we're working on to developing that on into English. So hopefully you can get some. And even if people from Galicia here, they didn't even know this place exists. So for European, it's also mind-blowing, actually.
Yeah, fascinating. So this is your chance now for a last and final question. Anyone would like to know more about the SpongeBoost project? It's a case study Aniela has just introduced. So this seems not to be the case. Then this underlines that the presentation was very clear and everybody understood everything perfectly. So it's a fascinating project, very, very well related to what we are doing in MERLIN. And yeah, I can just thank you for your presentation. Really interesting cases. And we all wish you good luck with the next steps in your project. MERLIN is already now in its final year, and you are still in the relatively early phase. So you will certainly have an interesting journey ahead of you. And we wish you all the best for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today and for hearing what we have to say about these sponge territories. So thanks you once again, and have a great, wonderful week. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. So before we close this webinar, we would like to announce our next webinar. We will, as usual, announce it through our project website, and the next one will be by a private consultant. His name is Ben Delbere, and he will talk about well, stakeholder engagement and business development and restoration. This is also part of a big project, BioAgora, you may have heard about already. So it will also be basically an introduction of another huge and more cross-cutting European project. Okay, then thank you all very much for participating, and we wish you a good afternoon and a nice and successful rest of the week. Hope to see you next time.